When he woke up, Shen Qingqiu slowly turned over in bed, but he didn't find an arm locked around his waist as he usually did. The light of dawn spilled in from beyond the window. He covered his eyes with the sleeve of his inner robe, but this single movement made his waist and back begin to ache and his arm feel weak. A faint tearing pain came from a certain part of his lower half. After last night's whole stretch of nonsense, waking up had come with a wave of consequences. Wondering why Luo Binghe hadn't woken at the crack of dawn to clean him up and make breakfast on the way, Shen Qingqiu rasped. No one responded. Even more confused, Shen Qingqiu forced his eyes open and looked down, only to find a small head with a curtain of soft black hair. Shen Qingqiu was speechless. The owner of this small head had a cute and pretty face with a natural flush on his pale and tender cheeks, a long thick curtain of lush black eyelashes, tightly shut eyes, and a pale pink lips. This person was also curled up in a ball like a little kitten by Shen Qingqiu's side, his head pillowed on his own arm. Even though this person wasn't the same size, and even though he looked to be about 5 or 6 years old at the most, and even though there were no more, quote, even those. Even if he'd shrunk to another size, Shen Qingqiu could absolutely still recognize him at first glance. This was the face of the great male protagonist. With a shudder, his voice jumped up an octave. Luo Binghe? He was going to try pinching his own arm to see if he could pinch himself awake. But as soon as he sprang up, that ache in his lower half sent him collapsing stiffly back down. Still curled up in a little ball, Luo Binghe's lashes trembled, and he slowly drifted awake. With a red mark across one half of his face from his own arm, he squinted at Shen Qingqiu's half-dressed form across the bed and reached for him in a "give me a hug" gesture.
师尊.
This voice was soft and squishy, so tender and sweet that it practically dripped. Accordingly, Luo Binghe froze as soon as he opened his mouth. They gave each other a blank stare. After a period of chaotic fumbling, they finally managed to sort out what exactly had happened. Luo Binghe had been at a critical juncture in his cultivation lately. The common wisdom was that he should have been clearing his mind and keeping himself pure of base desires in order to prevent any mishaps from occurring. Yet, the evening prior, he had lost control and rolled around with Shen Qingqiu all night, and finally, he'd suffered a chi deviation. Shen Qingqiu didn't find this at all difficult to accept because this plotline had occurred in the original text of Proud Immortal Demon Wei. Of course, Airplane Shooting Towards the Sky hadn't written that arc for cute fluff, but rather because the de-aged Luo Binghe had been able to openly strut into all sorts of locations an adult man couldn't enter. Exactly what those locations were, one can imagine for oneself. And such a little kid was way better at lowering young women's guards, so they could proceed to have intimate contact, and then, right when they least expected it, he'd wing them over in a single blow. This plotline had taken so long to show up that Shen Qingqiu had thought it had been skipped. He never expected that it had just been unable to occur on time. Shen Qingqiu pressed a hand to his forehead. How much of your martial aspect remains?
Not even 1/10.
Luo Binghe had a stern expression written all over his youthful face. Not only did it fail to convey the severity of the situation, it was instead extremely funny. So Shen Qingqiu very uncharitably began to laugh. After he was done laughing, he rearranged his face into a serious expression and said with a cough, Just 1/10. All right, then we can't stay in the demon realm. Luo Binghe had offended more than a few humans and demons both, At this sort of time, the obvious next move was to flee as far away as possible and hide as well as they could. Shen Qingqiu's first thought was, therefore, to grab Chibi Luo Binghe and make a run for it ASAP. Having made up his mind, he went to get up and get dressed, only for his face to twitch in pain again as soon as he straightened his back. Every time before, after they finished, Luo Binghe had carried him into the hot springs while he was still deep asleep and help him clean up. But now, Luo Binghe could at most cling to one of Shen Qingqiu's legs, much less haul him anywhere. Luo Binghe crouched down next to him, eyes huge and on the verge of tears. Shen Qingqiu was silent for a moment, then comforted him. "Forget it, it's fine. I can do it myself." In the deepest part, in the middle of the natural hot springs, Luo Binghe had dug in the underground palace. The water rose past Shen Qingqiu's chest. If he tossed Chibi Luo Binghe into it, he'd immediately be submerged up to his head. So Shen Qingqiu had to carefully sit down on the round stones along the edge while holding him, and even instructed him to sit tight so as not to slip. He was about to start giving himself a cursory cleaning when he saw Luo Binghe straining to reach a nearby chunk of limestone to try to hand him the box of soap sitting there, but no matter how far he stretched, he fell short. This scene reminded him of Luo Binghe crouched in a valley when he had first arrived at Changqiu Mountain to seek tutelage, a patched-up cloth bundle on his back as he assiduously dug holes. Shen Qingqiu looked at him for a while and couldn't resist pulling him into his arms. Expressionless, he began to squish and tug at Luo Binghe's face. While subjected to this aggressive harassment, Luo Binghe inhaled a few gulps of water. His skin already had a faint flush from the warm steam, and with his struggles, his entire body practically turned pink. In a surge of emotion, Luo Binghe instinctively grabbed Shen Qingqiu's wrist and tried to shove him down against the limestone. Though Shen Qingqiu considerately cooperated and let Luo Binghe, quote, shove him down, Luo Binghe's pretty little face went instantly dark. With this body, even if he shoved Shen Qingqiu down 1,000, 10,000 times, there would be no point. He couldn't do anything about it. At the sight of Luo Binghe's face going from red to white to dark, Shen Qingqiu practically gave himself an internal injury from trying not to laugh. "You're so impetuous when tormenting this master last night, suffering the consequences today, aren't you?"
"Wasn't it Shi Zun who seduced his disciple first?"
Luo Binghe cried out, betrayed. This made Shen Qingqiu's face flare red as he internally gasped in shame. He righted his expression and quickly let go. Caught off guard, Luo Binghe slipped into the water, disappearing in a stream of bubbles. Shen Qingqiu's preferences being what they were, the first haven he thought of was naturally Changqiu Mountain, but Luo Binghe would rather have died than go back there. That was about right. As of now, with Luo Binghe's martial aspect damaged, he'd definitely get hounded by onlookers if they went, and Liu Qingge would definitely be within that crowd. So, Shen Qingqiu compromised and just brought him to the human realm. As they say, the greatest form of solitude is solitude within a city. Thus, they settled in an especially prosperous town. While Luo Binghe was repairing his martial aspect, they would take up residence there to pass the time. Shen Qingqiu soon got so bored that his bones began to itch, so he casually took up work at the largest academy in the city. Naturally, Luo Binghe was unhappy with this. First of all, he disliked it when Shen Qingqiu took other disciples. Wasn't that throng of disciples on Qingjing Peak enough for him? And now he was taking more? Second of all, he disliked it even more when people assumed he was Shen Qingqiu's son, especially because every time they got into bed at night, he was kissed and hugged, yet he couldn't do anything at all. He even had to listen to Shen Qingqiu's teasing, calling him a good boy and my little darling. More and more, he came to hate his own lack of ability. When Shen Qingqiu returned from the academy one day, he saw that Luo Binghe had brought a stool to the doorway and was sitting there waiting for him, an aloof and unfathomable expression on his face. If you swapped him with the adult version, this sight would naturally have made one shrink back in fear, trembling in their boots. But what about when he was the wrong size? All he did was make it irresistible to reach out with a pair of fingers to pinch his wee face. No matter the depths of refusal he summoned to his face, even the little chirping sparrows surrounding him couldn't stop building dirt castles all around his stool, one after another, as they occasionally tried to cajole him to join their games. Said sparrows were the neighboring family's kids. Since the first day Luo Binghe and Shen Qingqiu moved in, the children had submitted to the male protagonist's charisma halo and clung to him like nothing else. He couldn't even chase them away. Fortunately, they were all afraid of Shen Qingqiu. Every child was afraid of a teacher, so as soon as they saw him return, the flock scattered. Thus, Shen Qingqiu gracefully extended his fingers and moved to claim his usual pinch of Luo Binghe's cheeks. Then, a series of bright, crisp voices called, "Shen Xianshen!" from behind him, and a few graceful figures decked out in silver and gold walked into the courtyard uninvited. Shen Qingqiu turned and saw that the newcomers were a few of the town's rather energetic married ladies. He gave them a nod, but before he could offer a greeting, the one in the lead strode up and caught his arm, whereupon she tried to drag him out and away.
"Shen Xianshen, we've been looking for you all day. Come on, come with me quick. This girl's going to go mad waiting." "Go where?" Luo Binghe snapped. "What girl?"
Shen Qingqiu was also confused. Lady A, startled by Luo Binghe's dark expression, fanned herself and let out a sound of surprise.
"Oh, such a little one, yet he's so scary when he talks. Whatever is this young master so angry about? Shen Xianshen, is he mad at you?"
Lady B bustled over.
Here, come over here, young master. Jie has some candy for you. Don't get in your daddy's way."
Luo Binghe ignored them and assumed a cold look.
"Shizun, did you make plans today?"
"This I don't remember," replied Shen Qingqiu. Lady A stuttered at him.
"Shen Xianshen, you know perfectly well, and you still ask. Do you have to make me say it clearly? Fine. I have a niece in my family, an excellent and respectable girl. I thought you two would be a good match, so we arranged a banquet in Chenxi Pavilion to let you get to know each other. And that girl is from my family. And my cousin too."
It looked like everything happened fast in lively places. Shen Qingqiu hadn't been here for very long, but all the residents of the city were already talking about how there was a new scholar in town, and not only was he well-read and highly talented, polite and soft-spoken, he also had a handsome and elegant appearance and was very refreshing. Of course, all of this was superficial. The most important thing was that he had to be rich, stinking rich. He'd throw down the money for a respectable courtyard all at once. How could he have managed that if he wasn't rich? And he'd even come with a 4 or 5-year-old son, and what a pure and adorable child he was, already a handsome sprout at this age. He would certainly develop into an elegant and dignified gentleman in the future. How devastating! Anyone with an unmarried daughter of suitable age or a newborn daughter without an arranged betrothal would be raring to snag them. A match with either the elder or the younger, neither would be a bad deal. Luo Binghe's face was green with rage.
"He doesn't need matchmaking.
His rightful partner wasn't dead yet." Lady C strolled over, swaying her hips.
"Little young Master Shen, do you not want your dad to marry a new wife? Won't it be good to have a gentle, pretty new mom to take care of you?
That's right, Lady B added.
沈先生, you can't spoil your son like this. I hear you bring him with you to the academy, and he even sits on your lap. You don't have to take it from me, but if you pamper him this much, you want to raise him into a good man. My son, you see.
At the sight of Luo Binghe on the verge of flattening this entire courtyard with a flick of his arm, Shen Qingqiu hurriedly picked him up and retreated. This Shen accepts all of your good intentions. I do not plan on, restringing my Qing, as it were. I have no one at home and a young son to look after, so please forgive me for my inability to accept your invitation.
What is Shen Xiansheng saying?
Asked Lady A, who wore a large red peony pinned at her temple, as she spoke with a righteous vigor.
Men and women ought to get married when they come of age, and you have such a large residence. How can it go without a lady to attend the house? By what logic ought a person of such character and elegant demeanour be all alone with a single child? Not only will you be uncomfortable, it won't look good. People will talk.
Lady A waved her round fan, brooking no resistance.
It's a date. Shen Xiansheng, you're coming with us right now. The little young master can stay home. Someone will come to keep him company.
Luo Binghe sneered.
Just who do you think is going to leave?
Shen Qingqiu wasn't able to keep up with this savage charm for long. In consideration for the lives of his 3 eager matchmakers and everyone else in town, he flung out a few talismans to render them unconscious, abandoned the residence he had bought not even a month ago, and fled.